Another superstition about the fire bear was that any person who should be so unfortunate as to behold him would die within 3 months after seeing him, unless perhaps he could kill the fire bear, a task which would necessitate the use of a potent charm, for the fire bear bore a charmed life. The fire bear had been seen, within the memory of the oldest inhabitant, by 8 or 10 persons, always after night. Each one who had seen the bear had died within the 3 months following. He had been stalked by many hunters, and although several opportunities to kill him had occurred, yet no one had accomplished that much desired event. You may be sure there were no more games, riddles, or nut-cracking that evening in the Brent cabin. The children stood for a few moments in a frightened group, and then took their old places on the logs inside the fireplace. Polly, who was stupid with fright, stood for a short time silently facing the fire, and then said mournfully, "Balser, you and me had better jine the church. We're goners inside the next 3 months. Goners, just as sure as my name's Polly." Then meditatively, "A dern sight surer than that, for my name ain't Polly at all, but Samuel or Thomas or Bill or something like that, I forget which. But we're goners, Balser, and we might as well get ready. No livin' bein' ever seed that bear and was alive 3 months afterwards." Then Linny, who was sitting next to Balser, touched his arm gently and said, "I saw him too. I followed you a short way when you went out, and I saw something bright crossing the river on the ice just below the barn. Was that the bear?" "Yes, yes," cried Balser. "For goodness sake, Linny, why didn't you stay in the house?" "You bet I stayed in," said Jim. "And so did I," said Tom. No one paid any attention to what Jim and Limpy said, and in a moment Linny was weeping gently with her face in her hands. Jim and Limpy then began to cry, and soon Polly was boo-hooing as if he were already at the point of death. It required all of Balser's courage and strength to keep back the tears, but in a moment he rose to his feet and said, "Stop your crying, everybody. I'll kill that bear before the 3 months is half gone. Yes, before a month has passed. If Linny saw him, the bear dies. That settles it." Linny looked up to Balser gratefully, and then turning to Polly said, "He'll save us, Polly. He killed the one-eared bear, and it was sure enough sight worse to fight than the fire bear. The one-eared bear was a devil." Polly did not share Linny's confidence, so he sat down upon the hearth and gazed sadly at the fire a while. Then, taking his elbow for his pillow, lay down upon the floor and moaned himself to sleep. The children sat in silence for a short time, and Jim lay down beside Polly and closed his eyes in slumber. Then Limpy's head began to nod, and soon Limpy was in the land of dreams. Balser and Linny sat upon the spare backlog for perhaps half an hour without speaking. The deep bed of live coals cast a rosy glow upon their faces, and the shadows back in the room grew darker as the flame of the neglected fire died out. Now and then a fitful blaze would start from a broken ember, and the shadows danced for a moment over the floor and ceiling like somber specters, but Balser and Linny saw them not. Despite their disbelief in the existence of the fire bear, the overwhelming evidence of the last 2 hours had brought to them a frightful conviction of the truth of all they had heard about the uncanny, fatal monster. 3 short months of life was all that was left to them. Such had been the fate of all who had beheld the fire bear. Such certainly would be their fate unless Balser could kill him, an event upon which Linny built much greater hope than did Balser. After a long time Balser spoke in a low tone that he might not disturb the others. "Linny, if I only had a charm, I might kill the fire bear. But a gun by itself can do nothing against a monster that bears a charmed life. We must have a charm. You've read so many books and you know so much. Can't you think of a charm that would help me?" "No, no, Balser," sighed Linny. "You know more than I 1,000 times." "Nonsense, Linny. Didn't you spell down everybody? Even the grown folks over at Castor's Spelling Bee?" "Yes, I know I did, but spelling isn't everything, Balser. It's mighty little, and don't teach us anything about charms. You might know how to spell every word in a big book and still know nothing about charms." "I guess you're right," responded Balser dolefully. "I wonder how we can learn to make a charm." "Maybe the Bible would teach us," said Lenny. "They say it teaches us nearly everything." "I expect it would," responded Balser. "Suppose you try it." "I will," answered Lenny. Silence ensued once more, broken only by the moaning wind and the occasional popping of the backlog. After a few minutes Lenny said in a whisper, "Balser, I've been thinking. I'm going to tell you about something I have. It's a great secret. No one knows of it but Mother and Father and I. I believe it's the very thing we want for a charm. It looks like it, and it has strange words engraved upon it." Balser was alive with interest. "Do you promise never to tell anyone about it?" asked Lenny. "Yes, yes, indeed. Cross my heart. Pawn honor. Hope to die." Balser's plain, unadorned promise was enough to bind him to secrecy under ordinary circumstances, for he was a truthful boy. But when his lips were sealed by such oaths as "cross my heart" and "hope to die," death had no terrors which would have forced him to divulge. "What is it? Quick, quick, Lenny! You'll never tell?" "No, cross my—" "Well, I'll tell you. I've a thing at home that's almost like a cross, only the pieces cross each other in the middle and are broad at each end. It's a little larger than a big button. It's gold on the back and has a lot of pieces of glass, each the size of a small pea, on the front side. Only I don't believe they're glass at all. They are too bright for glass. You can see them in the dark where there's no light at all. They shine and glitter and sparkle so that it almost makes you blink your eyes. Now, you never saw glass like that, did you?" "No," answered Balser positively. Lenny continued, "That's what makes me think it's a charm, for you couldn't see it in the dark unless it was a charm, could you, Balser?" "I should think not." "There's a great big piece of glass, or whatever it is, in the center of it, as big as a large pea, and around this big piece are 4 words in some strange language that nobody can make out. At least Mother says that nobody in this country can make them out. Mother told me that the charm was given to her for me, by a gypsy man when I was a baby. Mother says there's something more to tell me about it when I become a woman. Maybe that's the charm of it. I'm sure it is." And she looked up to Balser with her soft bright eyes full of inquiry and hope. "I do believe that thing is a charm," said Balser. Then meditatively, "I know it's a charm. Don't tell me, Lenny, that you don't know a lot of things." Lenny's sad face wore a dim smile of satisfaction at Balser's compliments, and again they both became silent. Balser remained in a brown study for a few moments and then asked, "Where does your mother keep the charm?" "She keeps it in a box under my bed." "Good, good," responded Balser. "Now I'll tell you what to do to make it a sure enough charm." "Yes, yes," eagerly interrupted Lenny. "You take the charm and hold it on your lips while you pray 7 times that I may kill the bear. Do that 7 times for 7 nights, and on the last night I'll get the charm, and Polly, Limpy, and I will go out and kill the bear just as sure as you're alive." The plan brought comfort to the boy and girl. Soon Lenny's eyes became heavy and she fell asleep. And as Balser looked upon her innocent beauty, he felt in his heart that if 7 times 7 prayers from Lenny's lips could not make a charm which would give him strength from on high to kill the bear, there was no strength sufficient for that task to be had any place. Late in the night, 9 o'clock, the parents of the children came home. The sleepers were aroused, and all of them tried to tell the story of the fire bear at once and at the same time. "Tell me about it, Balser," said Mr. Fox seriously, for he too was beginning to believe in the story of the fire bear. Then Balser told the story, assisted by Polly, and the strange event was discussed until late into the night, without, however, the slightest reference to the charm by either Balser or Lenny. That was to remain their secret. Mr. and Mrs. Fox remained with the Brents all night, and before they left next morning Lenny whispered to Balser, "I'll begin tonight as you told me to do with the charm. 7 nights from this the charm will be ready, if I can make it." And so will I be ready, answered Balser, and both felt that the fate of the Fire Bear was sealed.